Sim shalom, tova uvracha be'olam, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Grant peace, goodness, and blessing in this world, grace, love, and mercy over all of us and all your people Israel. Barchenu avinu kulanu ke'echad be'or panecha. Bless us, source of being, all of us, as one amid your light. Ki ve'or panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torat Chaim, ve'avat chesed u'tzedakah uvracha, ve'rachamim v'chaim v'shalom. For by your light, compassionate one, our God, you give to us Torah of life, and love and kindness, justice, blessing, mercy, life, and peace. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael, ve'et kol ha'amim berov oz v'shalom. So may it be a good thing in your eyes to bless all people with abundant strength and peace. Baruch atah Adonai, oseh hashalom. Blessed are you, source of life, maker of peace. And let us say, Amen.
On behalf of the Dean of the Duke Chapel, Reverend Dr. Luke A. Powery, the chapel staff, and the Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Committee, I want to welcome you this afternoon to this service of commemoration celebrating the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Reverend Dr. King was a prophet and a preacher who understood the power of words and the power of people compelled together by those words. Dr. King used his powerful words to proclaim a vision for an America marked by liberty and justice for all. He used his poetic words to shape the imaginations of generations. And he used his prayerful words to call on God to change the hearts and minds of people who prefer the false tranquility of lies over the creative trouble of truth. One note in a manner of truth-telling about your program, you will see the land acknowledgement is Miss Darian Herndon rather than Mr. Darian Herndon, so note that in your bulletin. So let us use our words together in honor of Dr. King as we join together in prayer, using a prayer that Dr. King himself prayed. Most gracious and all-wise God, before whose face the generations rise and fall, thou in whom we live and move and have our being, we thank thee for all of thy good and gracious gifts, for life and for health, for food and for raiment, for the beauties of nature and human nature. We come before thee painfully aware of our inadequacies and shortcomings. We realize that we stand surrounded with the mountains of love, and we deliberately dwell in the valley of hate. We stand amid the forces of truth and deliberately lie. We are forever offered the high road, and yet we choose to travel the low road. For these sins, O God, forgive. Break the spell of that which binds our minds. Purify our hearts that we may see thee. O God, in these turbulent days when fear and doubt are mounting high, give us broad visions, penetrating eyes, and power of endurance. Help us to work with renewed vigor for a worldless world, for a better distribution of wealth, and for a brotherhood that transcends race or color. Amen.
Windapo, Citroen Khan, Nutterowan Starian, Lumbee Ninowam. Hello, my name is Darian Herndon, and I am a member of the Lumbee tribe, and I will start this procession off with a land acknowledgement. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects Indigenous people as traditional stewards of this land and the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. To recognize the land is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose territories that you reside on, and a way of honoring the Indigenous peoples who have been living here and working the land from time immemorial. It is important to understand the long-standing history that has brought you to reside on the land and to seek and understand your place within that history. Land acknowledgements do not exist in a past tense or a historical context, as colonialism is an ongoing process. Therefore, we acknowledge that this space and the greater university gathers on land that has long served as the site of meeting and exchange among numerous Indigenous peoples, historically the Shakori and Catawba peoples. It is also important to recognize the 8 tribes that currently reside in North Carolina. These include the Coharie, the Lumbee, the Mahiran Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation, the Halawa Saponi, Waccamaw Siouan, Saponi, and the Eastern Band of Cherokee. We honor and respect these diverse Indigenous peoples connected on this territory in which we gather today. Thank you.
On behalf of the Duke community, I'm honored to welcome you to Duke Chapel for this celebration of the life and the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Each year, we gather in this sacred space to remember Dr. King's great contributions to the struggle for civil rights, to take stock of our continuing progress and occasional setbacks on the road to equality, and to recommit to building a nation that lives up to its noblest aspirations of freedom and justice for all. This year's commemoration is a fitting reminder of the great promise of this institution and others like it. Communities of extraordinary people who, by working together, have the power to bend the arc of the universe toward justice. We are proud to train students to be independent thinkers and support scholars in groundbreaking research, and in so doing, open up new worlds of possibility. At the same time, we set out to harness these resources toward the development of our society and the economic and social empowerment of our neighbors. It is through these dual missions that Duke is helping to bring to life the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. And as we gather here today, let us honor his memory by recommitting to serving our community as we strive together for equality and justice.
Friends, this is a serious day, and I have an especially serious topic to bring to us today. On this Martin Luther King Day, the city of Durham, of which I'm honored to be the mayor, is challenged by a moral crisis in the life of our city: the relocation of 280 families from the McDougald Terrace public housing community. Now about to enter its 3rd week because of the concerns about the health and safety of their apartments. Never have Dr. King's words and the example of his life been more salient in Durham than they are now. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, Dr. King said, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And that is certainly the case with our neighbors from McDougald Terrace. All of us in this city that we love so much are tied in a single garment of destiny with the people of McDougald Terrace. What we do to end this crisis for our neighbors, how we respond beyond their crisis to their need for safe, decent, and affordable housing will define us as a community and as a city. Our hearts go out to the relocated residents. I've talked to many residents one-on-one, about the burdens they are facing, and I have been struck by the way they have weathered this emergency with great dignity, unity, and patience. Durham Housing Authority Director Anthony Scott took over the Housing Authority shortly after I was elected mayor 2 years ago, and he is an outstanding leader. No one knew there were high CO readings at McDougald Terrace until recently, and when they were discovered, Mr. Scott immediately made the decision to relocate the residents because their safety was his first priority. The crisis at McDougald Terrace and many public housing communities in Durham and across the nation has been 40 years in the making. The federal government has abandoned the public housing it owns, not even providing enough money for the most basic repairs. So in Durham, we have, over the past 2 years, stepped in to do ourselves the work that the federal government should be doing. In these 2 years, we've allocated $15 million in city funds to support the Housing Authority's renovation of several communities, including the several hundred units in the Daymar Court and Maureen Road communities, just a little ways from Duke Chapel. In addition, just 2 months ago, as you all know, we put before the voters a $95 million affordable housing bond, $60 million of which is for the Durham Housing Authority's redevelopment. And thanks to you, this bond won overwhelming passage. This bond issue will help the Housing Authority redevelop several more crumbling public housing communities, and it has freed up $7 million in the Housing Authority's funds for the improvement of McDougald Terrace in this coming year. But McDougald Terrace is 66 years old. As I hear from many of the residents themselves, it needs to be torn down and replaced. We need to help these families through this crisis, improve their housing in the short term, and then replace it with the excellent housing that they deserve. Throughout this ordeal, we have seen an incredible outpouring of generosity from the Durham community to support the McDougald Terrace families. I know many of you have contributed your time or food or funds. On behalf of our entire community, I thank you. You are helping us weather this storm. But we must do more than weather the storm. When this storm is over, when the seas are calm, we must, as a city government and a community, do what the federal government has failed to do, and that is use the money of our housing bond and whatever other resources we need to make available to house all of our public housing residents in McDougald Terrace, in Oldham Towers, in Liberty Street apartments, and all of them in excellent housing. These, other than the truly homeless, are our most vulnerable neighbors, and we must make this right. I know that's my responsibility, and I'll be working on it every day, and I call upon you to join me in that work. For as Dr. King said, we are bound in a single garment of destiny. If we do this work well, we can truly make the city we love a city for all. Thank you.
Tambira Jehovah, Tambira Jehovah, Tambira, Tambira Jehovah, Tambira Jehovah, Tambira, Tambira Jehovah, Ielele, Ielele. Jesu nange mutange wasara wasara. Unamata Jesu nange mutange wasara wasara.
Itokwarie, itokwarie, maidhaipo, maidhaipo, usambe, usambe, kana, oya, kana, oya. No, 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 Kana, oh yeah, Kana, oh yeah, oh it's so quiet, it's so quiet, my people, it's so quiet.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Duke Health family, greetings. On July 21st, 1930, when Dr. King was a mere 17-year-old child, Duke University Hospital opened its doors to its first patients. That same year, medical school classes began, and the following year, the School of Nursing opened. While much has changed over the past 90 years, our core values have remained unchanged. A focus on excellence and taking care of our people, whether they are our patients and their families, our faculty, staff, students, and trainees, or the broader communities in which we serve. This auspicious day commemorating Dr. King's 91st birthday provides us with an opportunity to reflect on a personal level how we can embrace the values that Dr. King so eloquently articulated and fiercely pursued. For us in the world of health, one of Dr. King's values was expressed quite poignantly in the quote, and I quote, in this quote, and I quote, "Of all the forms of inequality, injustice in health is the most shocking and most inhumane," end of quote. Dr. King was, in words and deeds, one of the most effective advocates for equality in health and healthcare to have lived in our time. He understood long before most of our leaders in healthcare did that socioeconomic and environmental factors were among the most significant determinants of health and well-being. When Dr. King delivered his fiery speech in Chicago about segregated and unfair housing policies and paved the way for the U.S. Fair Housing Act of 1968, he was advocating for health. When Dr. King pushed for funding to provide high-quality education for poor Americans and escorted children and young adults to their newly integrated schools across the South, he was advocating for health. And when Dr. King launched and led campaigns from Birmingham to Boston, demanding jobs, unemployment insurance, and a fair minimum wage, he was advocating for health. So on days like today, when we're all celebrating and honoring this unparalleled champion for civil rights and equality, we're also remembering one of the nation's most effective champions for health and well-being. So it is my honor, on behalf of all in Duke Health, to again say welcome. Thank you.
As we gather here today in order to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we are challenged to think about how he led. As an ardent activist, minister, and organizer, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. set out to galvanize groups of people to realize the power in their voices and fight for their interests, for justice, for fairness, and for equity. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, just one suburb over from where Michael Brown was killed. I was just 15 years old. As I watched the Ferguson uprising unravel in August of 2014, I was forced to make sense of the things happening around me, including the protests. For almost 3 consecutive weeks, I watched the powerless become powerful as they forced the rest of the nation to bear witness to their struggle and systemic issues in wealth, education, health, and treatment of Black and brown people at the hands of the police. The people of Ferguson rose up in the name of Michael Brown and demanded a better nation for Black and brown people. Dr. King's legacy continues to live on through our current movements that have manifested across communities across the nation. From Ferguson to Baltimore to New York to McDougal Terrace in Durham, North Carolina, where Black women have been organizing for years to shed light on the disregard for low-income Black and brown people in Durham. Today, we will have the privilege to hear from our guest of honor, the first Black gubernatorial nominee in Florida, Mr. Andrew Gillum. Mr. Gillum epitomizes the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He works to empower and enfranchise those in his surrounding communities, as evident through his work and campaigns like Bring It Home Florida, in which he vowed to register 1 million new voters in Florida before this year's presidential election. This is the kind of leadership that Dr. Martin Luther King embodied. As we listen to Mr. Gillum's words, I encourage us all to consider how we will use our voices to empower those around us and uplift our communities. Thank you all for being here to celebrate with us, and special thanks to Mr. Andrew Gillum.
Hi, my name is Resilience Williamson, and today I'll be sharing a poem about not just the sorrow, but as well as the sacrifice and the strength of the power that lies in Black people. To all my Black brothers and sisters, we are smart, we are one of many kinds, and we are darn sure important. We are melanated bodies of sunshine. Through rain, sleet, and snow, we still find the strength to grow. Like the rose that grew from the concrete, we are manifested miracles, shining light into the next generation, lifting the burdens without hands. This is levitation. This is the first step to free them, breaking the chains built to weigh them down. We mapped out our dreams in the darkness. We radiated enough Black brilliance to illuminate the night sky and guide our children to freedom. We are midnight constellations. We are both Black and magic. We conjured up enough hymns of hope to heal all that is broke, but we ain't broke. We are alive. We waded through his water and reached the other side. We are powerful. We were thrown into this battlefield without supplies, but still we survived and we improvised. We are resilience. It took us centuries to get here, but ain't God good and ain't we great? Amen.
God is good, y'all. Good afternoon. My name is Adriana Williams. I'm a junior on the pre-med track studying neuroscience with a minor in African and African American studies. I am the Duke editor-in-chief of The Bridge, an online publication at Duke and UNC that celebrates women of color. I am also a proud member of the Lambda Omega chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Andrew Gillum. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools." It is without question that the words of Dr. King live on through the mission and work of our keynote speaker. Mayor Andrew Gillum is a public servant, community organizer, and champion of voter equity. While a student at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University at the age of 21, Mayor Gillum led a group of 1,000 students to protest Governor Jeb Bush's attempt to end affirmative action. He is the youngest person ever elected to the Tallahassee City Commission at the age of 23. He served for 11 years before becoming mayor of the city of Tallahassee, which happens to be my hometown. He is more well known, however, for being the 2018 Florida Democratic gubernatorial nominee. He was the first, as Deja said, the first Black gubernatorial nominee in the Florida Democratic Party's history. During his gubernatorial campaign, Mayor Gillum brought hundreds of thousands of Floridians together of all identities and beliefs in pursuit of fundamental human rights. He fought for Floridians' right to well-paying jobs and high-quality, affordable education. He believes that health care is a fundamental right rather than a privilege. He also believes that citizens should not live in fear of gun violence in our schools or communities. I will forever remember my first time voting because Mayor Gillum was the first gubernatorial candidate I casted a vote for. Although he came shy of winning the 2018 election by only 0.4%, Mayor Gillum has continued to create change in spite of that. Following his run for governor, he was honored as one of the Ebony Power 100 and named a 2019 resident fellow at the Institute of Politics at Harvard Kennedy School. Mayor Gillum serves as the chair of Forward Florida Action, a grassroots organization dedicated to increasing the number of registered voters in the state of Florida. You can also see him regularly on CNN as a political commentator, oftentimes along with April Ryan, Angela Rye, and Bakari Sellers. Many of you know our keynote speaker for all of his accolades and achievements. As for me, this moment is extra special because I know him as my uncle. For as long as I can remember, Andrew Gillum, or as I call him, Uncle Andrew, has been a champion of the people, a man of purpose and action, a phenomenal father and husband, which shout out to his wife, my auntie RJ, and someone I look up to more than I can express in words. It is my honor to welcome to the podium my uncle, Mayor Andrew Gillum.
All right. Oh, come on. Come on, y'all. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank y'all very, very much. We are still below the Mason-Dixon line, so y'all is still appropriate. In case it comes out a couple of times throughout my remarks, it is not by accident, and it also is not forced. It's just how I was brought up. I want to thank Adriana, who I could not be more proud of. I will tell you, I forewarned her that if she went too personal or embarrassing, that I had the last word because I was coming after her. And I'm leaving tonight, but she got to stay and graduate from Duke University. She has always been a young woman of grace, of class, of style. Her mother, who is my wife's line sister in Delta Sigma Theta, Sorority Incorporated. I've known Adriana since she was in holding position, actually in her mother's belly. I am extremely proud of the example that she sets for my younger daughter, Caroline, who's a 5-year-old. She knows Adriana because every time Adriana comes home, we pimp her out for a little bit of babysitting. We pay decent. I think we at least meet the $15 minimum wage standard that I talk about so often in politics. But Adriana, we could not be more proud of you. I cannot wait to see what the future holds. But I know one thing, the future is exceedingly bright for you. And not just for you, But judging by this program so far, are these not the most exceptional young people that we have seen? Y'all are bad. Y'all are bad. Y'all are bad. And you know what? With a spoken word like that, your name better be Resilience. I know that much. I want to thank President Price for the opportunity to be here. Mayor Steve Schewel, I have been in your shoes and I understand what it feels like. I know that unfortunately the crises are always coming, they're always present. And without knowing all the particulars of what this community faces, but having some sensitivity to issues that face communities, I would ask that you send prayers, well wishes up for this mayor, for this city council. Even if you don't philosophically agree, pray for wisdom. If you didn't necessarily vote for him and support him, although I'm sure all of you all did overwhelmingly, find out what you can do to strengthen his hand and help to guide his leadership so that he can be the best mayor for the Durham community that Durham has ever seen. I wish you well, Mayor. Chancellor Eugene Washington, congratulations on your appointment. So exceedingly proud for you. Provost Sally Kornbluth, very good to see you across this very formal setting here we've got up here. Vice President Kim Hewitt, thank you so much for being such a gracious host to me since we arrived here on campus. And then to all of you, there's some formalities that we got to go through, but y'all are the VVIPs, the ones who decided on Sunday, on an afternoon when you could be doing a whole bunch else, that you decided to come and not think it robbery to hear just a few of my thoughts as we enter this new 2020 year. And as I close my acknowledgments, I cannot end these acknowledgments without acknowledging the Rattlers, the members of the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University family. Y'all, I know we're at Duke University, but when the Rattlers are present, we tend to take over. So I want to give a shout out to my alma mater, Florida A&M University. And I'm especially honored this evening because the first female president of Florida A&M University, Dr. Almira Mangum, I saw coming down, is also in the audience. Will you just stand and wave, Dr. Mangum, so that we can see you? This is her hometown, y'all, so y'all can give her that hometown love, her home state, rather. And I got to say this in the presence of all of my Rattler family. I do this at the possibility of some jeers, but Florida A&M University was not my first choice for college. Bear with me. My first choice for university, because I didn't come from a background in my family where we went on to higher education. My mother was a school bus driver, and my dad was a construction worker. My dad had a third grade education, and my mother didn't finish high school. I'm the fifth of 7 kids in my family, and the first of my siblings to graduate from high school and go to college. But I share that to say that I got introduced to this little-known school called Hillman College back in the 90s as a kid. Now, some of y'all will know that. Others of you may be too young for it. Others of you may be too young at heart for it. But Hillman College was popularized through this little-known show called A Different World. Now, as a young person who wasn't very well exposed to higher education, this was the first time that I was able to look up and to see myself reflected. I saw people who looked like me, who sounded like me, who may have come from backgrounds that were similar to mine, and they were doing their thing. And I would be remiss if I also didn't add that when I saw Whitley Gilbert and Jaleesa, I just knew I was going to Hillman College. And And I'm not joking, y'all. I went through all the way through high school. And when I was a student at high school, and I know young folks may not be able to relate to this, but back then you used to have to fill out a Scantron that correlated the number, the digits of the school that you wanted your SAT scores to be sent to. And obviously the SAT Center would send it there. And so the big old long list of all the universities. And I am literally scouring this list, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I get through the H's and go over the H's again, and then I realize that Hillman is an HBCU, so maybe it's at the back of the book. And I go to the back thinking maybe Hillman's gonna be there, and there is no Hillman, but I'm so convinced that this is my school that I go to the guidance counselor indignant that I have a defective form. Long story short, she informed me that day that Hillman College existed only in the 9 p.m. hour on Thursday nights. The good news is, y'all, is that I would find my Hillman at Florida A&M University, and I would find my Jaleesa there. As we are here this evening to reflect on the contributions of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the point is not lost on me that as I stand here at this podium that I am older than Dr. King was when he died. That causes two reactions from me. The first one being, Gillum, you got to get off the ball. What the heck are you doing? There's a lot of life that you still have to live and things that you need to accomplish. And then the second thought that I have, and this is really for our young folks, but also our young at heart, age ain't nothing but a number. This man had the will to get out there and to activate, to create the kind of world that in his heart and in his nerve and in his sinew, he believed every single one of us, regardless of the color of our skin, where we come from, deserved. Principally, he believed that black people in this country deserve to be treated as equals. What a provocative notion. As we celebrate Dr. King's life, I hope that we take guidance not only from the past and his many contributions, but that we also use the past to inform our work in the future. Now, Dr. King was, in some cases, a futurist, right? This future that he talked about was firmly grounded in Dr. King's words of 1957 on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in a speech entitled, "Give Us the Ballot." By this time, Brown v. Board of Education had been decided. Boycotts all throughout the South had opened up doors of opportunity that were previously shut to people of color, and the only thing remaining was the franchise, the right to vote being extended in its most true and honest fashion. Dr. King called this wave of change a great beacon of light, of hope to millions of disinherited people throughout the world who had all only dared to dream of freedom. He said, "Give us the ballot and we will place judges on the benches of the South who will do justly and love mercy. And we will place at the head of Southern states governors who have not only felt the tang of a human, but the glow of the divine." For me, when I think about Dr. King, I can't help but to revert back to my own family and the story of my own family. Now, I've got to be honest, frankly, like most black Americans, my parents and grandparents did not march with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Nor did they march on Washington, nor did they sit at lunch counters in Greensboro or line up at the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma. But I will tell you this much, they made sure that a young man, even at my tender age, knew the names of the heroes and the sheroes who did. All of those who stood in resilience, who stood in their own courage, who made sacrifice and struggle. And the most beautiful part of the sacrifice and struggle is that they were not convinced at the moment that they were rendering that sacrifice and that struggle that they would be around to be the benefactors of their labor. I learned about them from my mom, who was a school bus driver, and my daddy, as I said before, who was a construction worker. And when I think about my mother as a school bus driver and try to put it in some metaphorical context of what Dr. King was doing, I'm reminded of Dr. King's journey through Montgomery and that simple demand of people on their way to work from one place to another. Folks who just wanted to get to school or to run their errands and to be able to do it with fairness and to be able to do it with dignity. And if they so chose, to take a seat at the front of the bus without there being any repercussion. When I think of my father's construction work, and again, try to figure it out into a context of Dr. King's work, I think of what he helped to build. And I remember Dr. King's journey for equal access. And then I remember how often must it have been that men like my father built doorways that they themselves could not enter. My family story is one that holds the legacy of Dr. King and what he talked about and so many of our parents and grandparents worked for day in and day out. As Dr. King said, let's build dikes of courage to hold back the flood of fear. How many of you all know that we've got some fearful times, and we're living in some fearful times? Well, Dr. King gave us a recipe to deal with this. He encouraged us to lean into our most courageous selves. My parents told me that I had a duty to march through every single doorway that the civil rights movement had kicked open for me. And that along the way that I would need to open some doors for those who would come behind me. This idea of passing it on, the ability to lift as we climb. That said, the debt that those folks paid for us, these giants whose shoulders upon which we stand. Accordingly, frankly, according to my grandmother, she said the only way that I was going to be able to get on this journey of paying this thing back was to get my education. Now, my grandmother, who had a third grade education and was a mother to 16 children, I know, I heard the groans. They were from Georgia. It was workforce, y'all. My grandmother was a woman of hard-earned wisdom and deep compassion and instilled in me a love of learning and made me appreciate, quite frankly, wisdom. And I didn't always associate wisdom with anything other than education, but my grandmother taught me what wisdom was. My grandmother, a woman who was very stern in our upbringing, because my mother and father would have to get up so early in the morning to tote themselves off to work. They would load me and my siblings into the car. And we would drive just a short distance down the block in Miami, Florida, and get dropped off at my grandmother and grandfather's house. My grandmother would let us sleep a little while before she would get us up and get us ready for the day. And she would perform two rituals, I would come to call them. They were practices. It was a lifestyle for her. The first ritual is that she would, before she would allow us to cross the threshold of the door, she would take her bottle of olive oil. It was also known as blessing oil. And she would twist off that bottle of olive oil, that top, and she would dip that bottle over into one finger and take that residue oil, and she'd build a cross on my forehead. It was her way of sending me out into the day with a blessing that no harm would come my way. And then my grandmother would light into this mantra, and she would say, boy, go to school, mind your teachers, get your lesson, and one day bring that education home. She would say, bring it home for your little brother and your little sister who don't know what education is yet. Bring it home. Bring it home for that little boy down the street that you play with, because God knows where he gonna end up. And she was right. His name was Tyrone. Tyrone was always in trouble. If there are any folks in this room who carry the name Tyrone, blessings to you and good luck. But I digress. My grandmama said, bring it home for your mama and for your daddy who get up every single day to go out there and slave on somebody else's job in order to keep a roof over your head and clothes on your back and food on the table. Bring it home. Now, y'all, I didn't know all the way what my grandmother was trying to communicate in those moments, but what I would come to learn is that my grandmother was in many ways describing what Dr. King described, which was that we, all of us, are tied up together. And you've heard these terms already, in an inextricably linked bond. You see, during that time, we believed that if I did good in life, we would all do good in life. There was the belief that we were in this thing together. And the truth is, the moments were not always good, right? But the strength of those bonds that sustained my family, even during some of those darkest times when my 4 oldest brothers all had run-ins with the criminal justice system and all earned criminal justice backgrounds. It was the strength of those bonds that broke the chain of despair and allowed me to attend a world-class institution. It was those bonds broken that allowed not only for me to go to college, but to see my little brother and little sister come behind me and do the same thing. You can't tell us we don't know what it means to see intergenerational poverty disrupted thanks to the access to a good public education. So, suffice it to say, when I stood on that stage in November of 2018, looking out on that very, very large crowd that had assembled on the steps of Florida A&M University, hoping to hear a victory speech that night, I got to tell you, I had a sense that ran through me that I may have let my grandmother down. I looked out on that crowd, the people who I consider are the ones who really lose when we lose these elections. These folks were from all walks of life, and they devoted countless hours and days and weeks and months and over years into our campaign, and they put their faith in me. And I said, I sincerely regret that I could not bring this home for you. And I got to be honest with you, Duke, that loss hurt, and sometimes it still hurts. And I put loss in quotes, 30,000 vote difference and 87,000 votes not counted, but who's counting? The truth is, what I realized is that the legacy of my campaign was never going to be defined by victory or defeat, by the precincts that we won or that we lost, by who came out on top in the very end necessarily. That night, more than 4 million Floridians from every corner of the state, black, white, rich, poor, men, women, young, and young at heart, showed up to support me in my campaign because we believed collectively in the possibility of something better. And I got to tell you, I still do believe. Just as no one bad day at school, no one bad grade or bad encounter with a teacher could stop me from bringing home an education to my grandmother, no one election decided by less than 0.5% should stop us from bringing home a better future for our children. As Frederick Douglass said, true statement, true statement. As Frederick Douglass said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. That's the story of the civil rights movement, y'all. That's the story of America, I would submit. Progress born of struggle, resilience in the face of adversity. On election night, we had record-breaking turnout in Florida. Our campaign may have come up short, but that same night, our citizens voted once and for all to re-enfranchise 1.3 million former felons through Amendment 4. 1.3 million people who didn't have the right to vote for decades, and in some cases, never had the right to vote, but whose voices, if it's the last thing that we do, will have their voices heard in our democracy in November of 2020 and beyond. And we're going to work to make sure that that is possible. You see, that victory showed us that change is really possible, but it's not necessarily possible overnight. But that if we all turn out, if we all exercise our democratic duty in 2020, then we can win. You see, our mandate in 2020 is that our historical remembrance of Dr. Martin Luther King is met with this moment, the one that we now find ourselves. Let's remind ourselves of his discussion around the fierce urgency of now. You see, we have holidays, we have memorials, we have statutes that celebrate Dr. King, but the strongest monument that may be the single most important document that we have, our strongest tribute to the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King and what he fought so hard for, along with our foot soldiers for justice, may be the ballot itself. The promissory note of Dr. King's 1957 speech on the power of the ballot came to fruition years later through the Voting Rights Act. But we should value the ballot as much as we value the stone monuments in Washington, D.C., the street namings in cities all across America, and the fire that burns for him in Atlanta, Georgia. Every day we are fighting in Florida and in Texas and in Georgia and in North Carolina to make the Voting Rights Act mean something, even as the other side, whatever that other side may be defined as, works diligently to strip us of that very hard-earned right. We know the activist spirit here in North Carolina because many of you here have battled the state efforts to suppress votes, gerrymandering districts, and rigging of elections. Just last month, a judge temporarily halted a voter ID law. In 2013, that version of a voter ID law was rejected when a judge said, and I quote, that law targeted African Americans with almost surgical precision. This is not by accident. He tells us that it is necessary to help time. That's what Dr. King tells us, that it's necessary to help time. Your votes are the help that we need to make those leaps forward in order for us to truly have a reflective democracy. What am I talking about, y'all? I'm talking about bringing Dr. King's spirit and the legacy of his work alive today in our communities. And there are a million things in which we can engage in. You all can think of a million things right here in the Durham community that you could be doing. North Carolina continues to be a battleground state for voting rights. Out of this struggle, we've seen the work of Reverend William Barber II. Y'all can give him a round of applause. He deserves it. Through the Moral Monday campaigns and the challenges that this state still has to face, again, to uphold Dr. King's legacy. Dr. King said, all we want from America is to be true to what you said on paper. All we want from America is to be true to what you said on paper. Be true to the registration card. Be true to the voter rolls. Give us the ballot is a history lesson, y'all, but it's also a call to action. It's a promissory note. The right to vote is a promissory note, and guess what? In 2020, that promissory note is due. Each primary, each general election is a chance for us to commemorate his legacy and to rededicate ourselves to the hopes and dreams of our ancestors and those who died for freedom on our behalf. While your North Carolina voter laws do not allow college IDs, the process is also, do rather allow college IDs, the process is so complicated that fewer than half of the 180 schools here have been able to complete it. Y'all aren't alone. In Florida, a federal judge said that college campuses must have voting precincts, and the Republican majority in the Florida House said, okay, but in order for college campuses to have voting precincts on campus, they must exhibit that they have sufficient parking for people to come off campus and vote on campus. Now, I don't know about y'all here at Duke. I know y'all got fine facilities, beautiful staff, wonderful administration, but I don't know a single college campus that has enough parking spaces for its students, let alone people to come off of it. This is a covert attempt to again suppress the vote. Consider that Governor Roy Cooper won by 10,000 votes in the state of North Carolina, with 500,000 undergraduate students in the state. Young people, for the first time, 18 to 35-year-olds, will outnumber baby boomers by share of the electorate. The largest percentage of the electorate will be 18 to 35-year-olds. Well, y'all, these folks don't go out of their way to suppress the vote for no reason. So some people say, because of these suppressive tactics, does it make sense for me to continue to vote? Well, that's a no-brainer. I don't know about y'all, but the moment somebody starts to get in my way, to erect barriers to keep me from being able to access something, that's when we go into overdrive. We don't lay down and let them roll over us. We stand up, we fight back, we demand our rights, and we win. That is our obligation. Your theme today is power to the people, and your power is amplified by your numbers. Duke and the colleges and universities of this state are at the center of power and potential transformational action. Y'all, we're in the academy. We're not just in college. We're not just here hanging out. You're in the academy. And the beauty of the academy is that you should not depart this place the same way you came. You should not leave this pristine campus with the same biases that you arrived with. You should, in my opinion, choose to be more curious and less judging about what is different. A lot of times, many folks take on the blame the victim personality. Well, we're challenging you all to take the next step to pull back the layers to think more critically about the systemic structures that stand in the way of your ability to be able to live out and fulfill your highest destiny. When Dr. King was here in 1964, he called out the appalling silence of indifference of good people who sit around and say, wait on time. He went on to give the audience a challenge. He said, somehow we must come to see that human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. Translated, you just can't sit back and wait. We got to do something. Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad that Dr. King chose to be impatient about change? Aren't you glad that Rosa Parks decided that a message of wait was out of time? I'm proud that she sat down so that I can stand up here today. These were individuals who again gave sacrifice without knowing whether they would ever be the benefactors. Because of the life of Dr. King and the lessons of the movement he led, they taught us that if we keep fighting, if we refuse to relent in the face of difficulty, justice delayed does not have to mean justice denied. Disappointment does not have to be cause for despair. And even when others count us out, and I dare say especially when others count us out, we have the ability to get back up, to keep fighting, to go for the power that we know belongs to us, and to come out ahead. I know that's what I plan to do, and I hope that there are a few people in this audience who are going to join me in that effort at demanding and seizing power. To quote the Barb Cardi B, and this may be the first time y'all done heard Cardi B quoted in a facility like this. Don't attribute all her lyrics to me, but just a few. Cardi B says, you can knock us down 9 times, but we're going to get back up 10. The question is then, what are we getting up and standing up for? And this is a question that has plagued me even after the race. Well, first thing, I think it's important for all of us to recognize that we've got a lot more in common than what divides us. That I want for my family, in most part, what you want for your family. I want for my child to be able to grow up as a child and not have to be infused with adult instincts when he goes out to play on the playground. That shouldn't be too much to ask. Those of us living in today's society, I hope that we know we're standing up for a good economy. And when I say a good economy, I mean an economy that produces jobs that equal more than wages. I'm talking about jobs that equal dignity. What does it mean to have a job that equals dignity? Dignity means that you're able to earn enough to take care of yourself and your family and maybe have enough to take a vacation every once in a while. And y'all, that shouldn't be too much to ask for. Jobs and work with dignity. I want a society where our students, our young people, my young Adriana and others don't graduate places like Duke and others, don't mean to name drop Duke, but others, without being saddled under a lifetime of burdensome debt. That's what I want for my children, my relatives, my family, and my friends. I want for our system, our society, And I hope that my brothers and sisters, regardless of where they come from, the side of town they live on, what their mother and father do for a profession, I want our courts and our jails not to be broken. I want a system that restores. Once you've committed your sin on society, your offense on society, and you go to jail and you pay back your debt to society, you ought to be able to re-enter society, have your right to vote, participate, and make a good way for yourself and for your families. I want judges who are unbiased. I want judges who are unbiased, and I want restorative justice to show up in communities all across the country where we don't just punish and get even, but we restore, make whole, and then make full contributing members of the society. I want a workforce that is highly trained and highly skilled. I want an education system in this country that produces students who are prepared for the future, but also an educational system that pays teachers what they're worth for the work that they do educating, supporting, and moving our kids ahead. Y'all, I want a healthcare system where people aren't terrified of getting sick. Because when they get sick, they can't go to work. And when they don't go to work, they don't earn a wage. And when they don't earn a wage, they can't pay their bills. And when they don't pay their bills, something gets turned off. I want a system where people don't have to rely on the emergency room for maintenance and care, healthcare at its most expensive and least efficient form. And if you think that we're not connected in this inextricably tied web, for those of us with health insurance, you do know that when those folks show up in emergency rooms and those costs get passed on and your premiums are increasing year over year over year, while you're saying, I'm healthier than I've ever been. We're all in this thing together, y'all. Just as Dr. King states plainly, we are bound up in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. We're in this thing together. Let's let the people know from Washington, D.C., all the way down to my great state of Florida, that we are not going to fall for their divisive tactics that cause us to turn on each other because of the way we look, the language we speak, who we love, the religion we observe. That we are better than that, and guess what? There are more of us than there are of them. This is the America that Dr. King dreamed for. This is the America that he fought for. He wrote in his words from a letter from a Birmingham jail. He said, more than a half century ago, 8 white clergymen had put a public letter calling his protest, quote, unwise and untimely. They asked why, quote, an outsider like Dr. King would come to a state like Alabama and create ruckus. So from his jail cell, King did not respond with anger or with indignation, but with eloquence and humanity, with resolution and resilience. He said, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Whatever affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. Here in America, he taught us, my fate is connected to yours. And that's true here because Dr. King made 5 public appearances right here to Durham. He visited the Woolworths and White Rock Baptist Church during the sit-in movement of 1956. In 1964, Dr. King spoke at North Carolina Central and here at Duke. Sadly, as we know, he did not make his way back to Durham that spring of 1968 because he was called away because of the sanitation worker strike in Memphis, where, as we all know, his life was cut short. He left us with this idea, a challenge to do the work required, to arouse the dozing conscience of a nation. Something worth remembering not just on this holiday or an election year, but always. The idea of one year-round remembrance lives here, because your library is home to SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and the One Person, One Vote website is a reminder of what students like you all did to make the vote a reality of Black life in America. So history of electoral justice is in the Duke Archive, and both the present and the future of electoral justice are here in the seats today. That is all of us. We are the future of electoral justice. I chose those words for a reason. Elections ought to be just. Elections ought to be fair. It is not a privilege to vote, although I feel privileged to vote. It is a right. And that is what we all have to work to defend. So as I come to a close, y'all, let's start living up to the legacy of all of the foot soldiers and Dr. King, what they marched for, what they fought for, what they bled for, what they sacrificed for, what many of them died for on behalf of a future that you and I could inherit. Y'all, to whom much is given, much is required, and I know you are the group that is always asked to do more. But because I know that if we embrace all that we all have in common, and there's a lot, if we can work together in every corner of every community, if we can leave footprints on every road, in every street, and make our voices heard in every ear by every single vote that we cast, then no matter how many times they knock us down, y'all, we will have the strength collectively to get right back up, to build on the work of those who came before us, and to make our union more reflective and more perfect. We are in the pursuit of the perfect. We ain't there yet. I got plenty of tales to tell about how we're not there yet, and so do you. But today we stand in America's promise. Today we stand in a place where we say we know we deserve better, and by God, we're not just going to remember all of the better we deserve on MLK Day. We will use it as a clarion call to get right back to the work that we know needs to be done in order to transform our communities. Let's decide that we will dedicate ourselves to registering more voters. Let's decide that we're going to commit all of our family members, our cousins and them. We say them, y'all may say and them. And I mean even the cousins you don't like talking to. Because the best, and research shows this, the best predicator of moving a person to the poll is the peer influence that comes from people who they know, love, and trust. Not a TV commercial. Hello, not a radio ad. Grandma, mama, daddy, granddaddy, cousin, friend, classmate, people who they know and trust. Let's commit ourselves to that. Why? Because as Dr. King said, let's build bridges and not walls. Y'all, immigration is on the ballot. Dr. King says science investigates, religion interprets. Science gives man knowledge, which is power. Religion gives man wisdom, which is control. Science deals mainly with the facts. Religion deals mainly with values, and the two are not rivals. Why do I say that? I say that, y'all, because climate change is on the ballot. And if you think you're safe, you think about these 100-year, 200-year storms that communities plan for, and they're not showing up every 200 years, they're showing up every other year. Earthquakes, tornadoes, deadly. 7 snow days in Chicago. They may be happy about it, but that ain't right. That ain't right, y'all. Climate change is real. The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. Public education is on the ballot this November. Dr. King said the ultimate measure of a person is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. Decency, respect, and Donald Trump is on the ballot. Attribute that last comment to me and not to Duke University. It's the only time you will hear that name. Dr. King said our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. Yes, freedom and democracy are on the ballot. But we've got to do as Dr. King, our foot soldiers, did, who gave selflessly on our behalf. I'm reminded of the Maasai tribe. You all may have heard of the story of the Maasai, the folks from an East African village who were known over the arc of history of demonstrating excellence in all things. They were excellent hunters and gatherers. They stood an average 6 feet tall. They were excellent warriors. And they also had something else in common. Anytime a fellow Maasai would come upon each other, they would address each other the very same way with the very same greeting. And that greeting to me is simple yet profound. It simply was, and how are the children? And how are the children? And how are the children? Because they are a society that recognizes that how good we are, how good society is based off of how well our children are set up to do. Don't you know Dr. King was thinking about how well are the children? Don't you think Rosa Parks was thinking about how well are the children? Fannie Lou Hamer were thinking about how well are the children set up to do? What if we had leaders, community activists, who were motivated by the idea that my everyday work is going to be aligned so that I set up a better future for the people who will come after me? So y'all, let this holiday be a day on, but also let this holiday be a remembrance, a rededication for each and every one of us to reassert what we are going to do to make this union that much more perfect. And in the words of my grandmama, Ella Baker Jackson, not the famous one, but the one who's famous to me, Duke, Durham, and the broader community, I need y'all to work with me to bring it home November 2020. God bless you. Best wishes and good luck. Thank you. Thank you.
Modi mori boka wena, modi moye, modi mori boka wena, yeah, modi mo. Rebook away, how about so let's dear to wakey, dear mori book away now, yeah, modi. Rebook away, atimo, modime. Reale, bohamudimo, odawe alilukula juta. Atimo, modime. Hauna yats wanna live in a Cabo Hulu. Hallelujah, God. Ulelume la la unyata fita. Jehovah Jireh, my provider. Hey, how about so? Let's Rebook away, how about so? Let's it's a bali, it's wakey way. Modimo, Modimo, Ribokawe, Ena.
Thank God. Thank God. Thank you, God. And we begin and we end in your name, the most gracious, the most merciful, the most kind, the most generous. Thank you for gathering us all here today. Thank you for making us different, so we can come together and see the beauty in our differences. Thank you for Dr. Martin Luther King, for sending him to us, teaching America and the world how to come together. Thank you for this chapel. Thank you for Duke and all the institutions of learning, many of which were started in your name, to increase our own intellect so that we can think of you, so that we can remember you. Thank you for the people outside volunteering their time to encourage us to vote. And I encourage you to stop by there. Make sure you're registered to vote. Martin Luther King kept it together. He has a quote, "Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education." Trying to bridge it and keep it together. University of Pennsylvania, laws without morals are useless. We have to keep it together. Here at Duke University, we pride ourselves in trying to bridge knowledge and faith. Whatever we do, we try to tie it to you. So we thank you. We thank you, we praise you, and we ask, help us, guide us, protect us, forgive us. We need your grace, we need your mercy, we need your wisdom. We want to be better so that we can make this a better world. We ask this in your name. Can I get an amen?
you.